As Ronan dashed through town, his eyes caught sight of a group of individuals tormenting a young boy. What perplexed him was the manner in which they suspended the boy from a tree, defying gravity without physical contact. It dawned on him that the boy was ensnared by a spell, held aloft by magic. Such a sight was incredulous to Ronan, for wielders of magic seldom ventured onto the battlefield, yet here was one amidst the village fray. In that instant, it dawned on him that a specific sorcerer had traversed through time to this era. The individual employing magic against the boy seemed to harbor remorse for their actions. The bullied boy, in a heartfelt plea, confessed his lack of funds, explaining that the money he possessed was earmarked for his mother's crucial medication. Disregarding the boy's plea about his mother's health, the bully callously continued his assault, demanding more money with slaps and shouts. Then, summoning the magician named Assassinated, the bully ordered him to hoist the boy higher up the tree. Assassinated, cautious of the danger, hesitated, explaining that a misstep could result in the boy's fatal fall. Threatening Assassinated with placement on the tree if he dared to defy him, the bully instilled fear in Assassinated heart. Confused and terrified by the situation, Assassinated questioned why such a fate had befallen him. He had pursued the study of magic to demonstrate his skills and worth, not to face such peril. Overwhelmed with fear and uncertainty, Assassinated found himself paralyzed by indecision. As he grappled with his options, Ronan intervened, striking Assassinated with his wooden stick. In an instant, Ronan's blow landed, causing Assassinated to lose his grip and the boy to plummet to the ground. Ronan urgently urged him to cease, warning of the potential fatal consequences. Enraged by Assassinated cessation, the bully demanded an explanation for the apparent disrespect. Assassinated began to respond, but Ronan interjected, questioning Assassinated about the source of his telekinetic abilities. Assassinated disclosed that he had acquired his skills from a grimoire purchased from a traveling vendor. Ronan expressed astonishment, unable to fathom how Assassinated had attained such proficiency from a modest source. Ignoring the bully's escalating frustration, they continued their conversation. However, the bully, feeling neglected, drew his sword and charged toward Ronan, intent on attack. Ronan pondered where a lad like him could procure a genuine sword, feeling disheartened by the bully's reckless charge, evident in his sloppy stance. With ease, Ronan sidestepped the attack, disappointing but not surprising him. Ronan attributed his calm reaction to the battle instincts ingrained in him from his time as a soldier, an aspect of himself that remained steadfast even upon returning to the past. As the tension thickened, Hans exerted more force with his shoulder. "If you die, your sister will think I'm cute when I take care of her, just imagining touching her round butt." Feeling a sudden unease, Hans shifted his gaze. His sliced ear now lay at his feet. Abruptly, searing pain shot through Hans's ear. Clutching the spot where his ear once was, he dropped his sword. With a menacing tone, Ronan warned against mentioning his sister's name again. Witnessing this unexpected display of violence, the other bullies were stunned. Despite using a mere wooden stick like theirs, Ronan had demonstrated his capability to inflict harm. Commanding them to return the stolen money and compensate for his disturbed state, Ronan asserted his authority. Once the money was gathered, Ronan handed it over to the boy, who expressed surprise at receiving more than what was stolen. Ronan reassured him that he only desired the sword, showing no interest in the money. As the boy expressed gratitude for Ronan's intervention, Assassinated regained his composure and offered a sincere apology to the boy for his involvement in the ordeal. Expressing his fear of the bully, Assassinated confessed that he felt compelled to comply with the bully's demands. The boy reassured Assassinated, understanding the pressure he faced. After expressing gratitude to Ronan, the boy departed. Ronan, relieved to learn that Assassinated wasn't inherently malicious, proposed a plan to him. He instructed Assassinated to meet him in 3 days' time, eager to share his intentions. Warning Assassinated not to flee, Ronan threatened consequences if he attempted to evade him. With this caution issued, Ronan hurried home. He gathered some flowers for his sister, knowing her fondness for them. Eventually, he arrived at the small house located on the outskirts of the village. Ivy vines covered the exterior wall, creating a picturesque scene. Unconsciously, Ronan took a deep breath, feeling a tension unlike any he had experienced before. Behind this door awaited Iril, his sister, whom he hadn't seen since he left home at 17, and who had perished during the giants' invasion. Ronan reached out to grab the doorknob. It should have been a simple task, but it felt more complicated than it seemed. Suddenly, the bouquet of flowers in his left hand caught Ronan's eye. 10 yellow and white primroses were beautifully arranged, the very flowers that Iril loved. He felt a pang of self-consciousness. He wasn't a blushing young man confessing his love. As Ronan contemplated turning around to discard the primroses, the door swung open, revealing a woman, a remarkable beauty in the transition from a young girl to a young lady. Ronan found himself frozen in place, captivated by her radiant smile. Memories flooded his mind. As a soldier, he often pondered what he would say to her if they were reunited. Should he apologize for leaving her behind? Express how much he missed her? In the moment, all Ronan could manage was a smile as he laid eyes on her once again. Upon entering the house, Ronan found his elder sister Iril admiring the flowers he had brought her. In gratitude, she had prepared a lavish meal for him. After indulging in the food, Ronan inquired about Iril's age that year. She replied that she was 22 years old. Ronan's spirits lifted upon hearing this, as it meant he had a decade to prepare for the impending battle against the mysterious creatures. Iril was taken aback by Ronan's sudden inquiry about her age. She sighed with concern, alternating between touching her own forehead and Ronan's. Ronan shared his desire to attend an academy with Iril. Delighted by his decision, Iril questioned if he was joking, as she had always wished for him to pursue such opportunities, despite his previous reluctance. Ronan affirmed his seriousness about attending the academy. Upon hearing this, Iril hastily rummaged through the house and retrieved a sizable pot. Peering inside, Ronan was astonished to find it brimming with money. Puzzled, he inquired about the source of such a large sum. Iril revealed that she had been secretly saving money over time, intending to use it to support Ronan's education at the academy. Her selfless act left Ronan deeply moved and grateful for her sacrifice. Expressing his gratitude, Ronan thanked Iril for her unwavering support. However, he gently informed her that the sum she had amassed might not suffice for enrollment in the academy he aspired to attend. Curious, Iril inquired about his preferred institution, to which Ronan replied, Philion Academy. Iril's reaction was one of shock and disbelief, evident in her startled exclamation. The Philion Imperial Academy stands at the pinnacle of educational excellence within the Empire. Renowned as the foremost institute of learning, it proudly hosts a faculty comprised of the most distinguished educators across the continent. Bolstered by substantial funding from the imperial family, the academy delivers unparalleled educational experiences, setting the standard for top-tier instruction. Such is the illustrious stature of the academy that it has earned the colloquial moniker of a hero factory. Its halls have nurtured legendary figures like the Grand Marshal Adeshan, the esteemed Schlieffen the Swordmaster, and even adversaries such as the infamous Winter Witch. The warriors of Philion undoubtedly made significant contributions to the war effort. Ronan grasped the significance of Grand Marshal Adeshan's words immediately. However, he couldn't shake the realization that gaining admission to the academy required meeting exceptionally high entrance standards and affording exorbitant tuition fees. As he wandered through the forest, Ronan mulled over this dilemma. Recalling their earlier conversation, Ronan was taken aback by his sister's unexpected reaction. Iril's smile and words of encouragement lifted Ronan's spirits as she assured him he could gain admission to Philion Academy. With a newfound determination shining in his eyes, Ronan halted his steps. He made a solemn vow to himself. He would prove his worth by securing a place at the prestigious academy. With his arms crossed, Ronan glanced ahead and spotted someone standing beside a tree. He hadn't anticipated Assel's presence. Assel, visibly anxious, clenched his fists and edged away from the tree. Worried about the consequences of his absence, Assel hesitated. However, Ronan intervened, offering a reassuring smile to the boy. He advised Assel not to dwell on the past. Ronan, burdened with a backpack, effortlessly slipped it off his shoulders. He remarked that they had a busy night ahead and expressed his need to assess Assel's abilities. Assel's face betrayed his confusion as he inquired about the nature of the test. Pointing to himself with his thumb, Ronan proposed that Assel employ his telekinetic powers on him. With an intense gaze fixed on Assel, Ronan prompted him to lift him as high as possible using his telekinetic abilities. Assel's expression shifted to one of surprise, clearly puzzled by Ronan's request. He questioned the reasoning behind Ronan's desire for him to use telekinesis on him. Assel expressed concern, arguing that using telekinesis on Ronan seemed risky. Dismissing Assel's worries, Ronan asserted that it wasn't dangerous and insisted that Assel comply with his instructions for the time being. He reassured Assel that he wouldn't come to any harm, emphasizing that he couldn't be killed. Assel emitted a groan as he raised his hands, preparing to utilize his telekinetic abilities. A faint light blue aura enveloped his hands as he extended them towards Ronan. With a determined push, Assel directed his invisible force towards Ronan. The invisible hands effortlessly lifted Ronan from the ground, prompting surprise from him as he realized the extent of Assel's magical prowess. Rising 100 feet above, Ronan sensed the stability of Assel's magic wasn't quite sufficient yet. Nevertheless, it reminded him of previous encounters with giants, where mages employed telekinetic spells, enabling him to engage in aerial combat. Recalling those moments, Ronan realized that this was exactly what he had hoped for. Peering down at Assel, Ronan smiled, aware of the scarcity of mages and the rarity of telekinetic abilities, even among their ranks. This realization underscored Assel's importance as a key player in Ronan's upcoming battle against the giants. Grinning, Ronan applauded Assel, acknowledging that they were off to a good start. However, Assel closed his eyes and expressed to Ronan that utilizing his magic was draining his energy. He politely asked if Ronan could lower him to the ground. Ronan smiled as he unsheathed his sword and inquired if Assel could hold on a little longer, expressing his desire to check one more thing before descending on his own. Upon hearing this, Assel opened his eyes and flinched, a hint of apprehension crossing his features. With his sword tightly gripped, Ronan slashed at Assel's invisible hands. Assel's eyes widened in disbelief at Ronan's unexpected action. Instantly, Ronan landed right in front of Assel, who watched in astonishment as Ronan effortlessly sliced through his mana. Assel clenched his hands into fists and inquired about Ronan's recent actions. Ronan casually remarked that it was nothing extraordinary, just a little trick he had always been able to pull off. Assel, amazed, continued to express his astonishment, noting that he had never heard of anyone cutting through mana before. Before he could finish his sentence, Ronan gently tapped Assel's head, advising him to forget about it. Ronan himself remained unsure of the exact mechanics behind his ability. Ronan sheathed his sword, pondering that uncovering more about this ability would become another mission for him. He speculated that this newfound capability might be the reason his sword alone could bring down the giants. Pushing that thought aside for the moment, Ronan decided to deal with it later. There were more pressing matters at hand. Grabbing the strap of his bag, he confirmed that Assel had passed the test. Ronan tossed one of the empty bags to Assel, urging him to follow along. He emphasized that they had work to do before the moon descended. Bathed in the bright moonlight, Ronan smiled at Assel, remarking that this moment marked the beginning of the tale of Ronan, a chapter that would etch itself into the Empire's grand history for eternity. Under the bright moonlight filtering through the forest canopy, Assel and Ronan proceeded on their path. As they walked, Assel spoke up from behind Ronan. "The Filion Academy," he said. Assel found himself questioning if he had misheard Ronan, so he asked again, "Did you say we're heading to Filion? The academy that exclusively accepts the Empire's most elite warriors? And you're bringing me along?" Ronan glanced back at Assel with his right eye and affirmed that Assel had heard correctly, though he noted that the barrage of questions was starting to wear on him. Assel eventually caught up with Ronan. Now fixing his gaze on Assel, Ronan asked if Assel didn't want to go to Filion. Assel responded, acknowledging Ronan's prowess as a gifted fighter and expressing confidence in his abilities. However, he confessed that he didn't excel at anything himself, nervously fidgeting his fingers. He added that he considered himself a coward and timid. With one of Ronan's eyes partially obscured by the strands of his hair, he questioned whether Assel desired to continue living his life in such a manner. Assel's eyes widened at Ronan's pointed remark. Ronan continued, suggesting that wasting his innate talent on dealing with insignificant street thugs was not the life Assel truly wanted to lead. Ronan pressed on, acknowledging that he himself had much ground to cover in various aspects. He concurred with Assel's assessment of himself as cowardly and timid, even admitting to being overly emotional and easily brought to tears. To add, Ronan described him as a wimp, afraid even of his own shadow. Assel felt Ronan's words like a sharp blow to his chest. Yet amidst it all, Ronan assured Assel that these shortcomings were inconsequential in the grand scheme, as Assel had the power to change them in due time. However, one thing Assel couldn't alter was the time he squandered. Ronan emphasized that if Assel didn't address those issues, he would inevitably come to regret it someday, just as Ronan himself did, staring pointedly at Assel. Ronan reflected on his own past, plagued by regret over decisions made while standing alone. Patting Assel's shoulder, Ronan inquired if Assel was beginning to reconsider. Assel, taken aback by Ronan's words, blushed, finding it hard to believe that someone as formidable as Ronan would show such concern for him. Overwhelmed, Assel covered his mouth with both hands, deeply moved by Ronan's sentiments. Ronan reiterated that he wouldn't compel Assel to accompany him. Recognizing that it was Assel's life and he had the freedom to return if he so desired, Ronan began walking forward, turning his back on Assel. However, Assel waved his hands and called out to Ronan, expressing his desire for change and his willingness to go to Philion with him. Assel just needed guidance on what steps to take. A mischievous smile spread across Ronan's face in response. Turning to face Assel, Ronan expressed satisfaction with Assel's comment, noting his apparent growth. Ronan proposed they commence with Assel's first challenge immediately. Assel stood upright, resembling a soldier prepared to heed Ronan's command. A menacing smile crept across Ronan's face. He knew his persuasive words had worked their magic. As they reached their destination, the crackling of fire filled the air. A shiver ran down Assel's spine as he beheld what lay before him. Peering from behind a bush, he voiced his uncertainty, asking if this was his first challenge. Ronan nodded affirmatively. This was the perfect opponent to provide Assel's skills with an immediate test, a lunar goblin. And not just one, but an entire group of them. With a playful smile, Ronan quizzed Assel, suggesting that this task should be a walk in the park for him. He rested his right hand lightly on Assel's shoulder, conveying confidence. However, with a serious gaze, Ronan urged Assel to begin, his stare carrying a silent but urgent command. Lunar goblins, a breed of goblin mutants indigenous to these lands, sport yellowish skin and grotesque bodies, setting them apart from their ordinary kin. However, what truly distinguishes lunar goblins is their insatiable obsession with treasure. Without the slightest hesitation, lunar goblins ambush merchants, plundering their valuable possessions. Once they've amassed their loot, they convene for a celebration. However, these gatherings only occur on nights like this, when the moon is full. Trembling, Assel brought his hand to his mouth, realizing the purpose of their visit tonight: to pilfer all the treasure from the lunar goblins. Observing a lunar goblin sleeping against a rock, Assel was taken aback upon hearing about the goblin's thieving and celebratory habits, finding it unusual. He questioned how Ronan had managed to uncover this information. Ronan casually opened the flap of his bag and replied that he had heard about it from somewhere. However, he knew he couldn't reveal to Assel that he had seen them during his travels in his previous life. With a mischievous smile, Ronan gently squeezed Assel's shoulder, suggesting that all he had to do was use telekinesis to move the goblin's treasure while they slept and place it in the bag Ronan was holding. Assel shifted his gaze towards the bag, expressing his doubts. He acknowledged that it wasn't an easy task. Lacking confidence in his abilities, he worried about the potential consequences of making a mistake. If the goblins were to wake up, it would undoubtedly put them in danger. Assel pleaded with Ronan, expressing his reluctance to utilize his telekinetic ability due to the perceived risk. He suggested they brainstorm alternative approaches. Ronan locked eyes with Assel and disparagingly labeled him a coward. Ronan gestured with 2 fingers towards Assel, emphasizing the 2 crucial elements they needed to address immediately if they were to attend Philion Academy. The first was money. as the tuition fees at Philion were exorbitantly high. However, the second requirement, real combat experience, was even more critical. Ronan elaborated, explaining that Philion was populated by warriors from aristocratic backgrounds who had received elite education since birth. If Assel aimed to compete with individuals of that caliber, there was only one recourse. He would need to endanger his life to amass genuine combat experience. That's why targeting those goblins was so ideal. They offered both the opportunity for wealth and valuable experience. It was akin to hitting two birds with one stone, Ronan explained, his gaze fixed on the lunar goblin concealed behind the bush. Ronan then asked Assel whether his idea seemed reasonable or not. Assel, conceding defeat, agreed with Ronan. Ronan then gave Assel a hearty slap on the back, urging him to get started. The moon cast its radiant glow, illuminating the dense forest's trees. Assel employed his telekinetic ability to pilfer gold necklaces, watches, rings, and coins, deftly depositing them into the bags Ronan had provided. Once the bags were filled, Ronan expressed his gratitude to Assel for his efforts. He hadn't been entirely certain if Assel could accomplish the task, so he was pleasantly surprised when everything went according to plan. Ronan felt a surge of satisfaction at having found such a useful ally. As Ronan packed up his belongings, two men could be seen chasing after a bird, shouting angrily at it. Regrettably for Ronan, a goblin stirred awake upon hearing the commotion. As it surveyed its surroundings, it quickly realized their treasures had vanished. Hastily, it roused the other goblins and conveyed the dire situation. Meanwhile, as Ronan and Assel prepared to flee, they were spotted by the goblins, who promptly launched an assault. Overwhelmed by fear, Assel collapsed to his knees. As the goblins closed in, Assel asked Ronan if they should abandon the treasure and flee. Ronan instructed him to hold onto the treasure, emphasizing its necessity for their tuition fees. Meanwhile, as the goblins approached, Ronan drew his sword to assess its weight and durability. He was aware that with the quality of his sword, he could only execute about 15 strikes before it became useless. This posed a challenge since there were 30 goblins, but Ronan remained confident that 15 strikes would suffice. As he swung his sword for the first time, he decapitated 3 goblins in a single stroke. Assel couldn't believe his eyes. Ronan dispatched the first 3 goblins with a single strike, then proceeded to attack the remaining goblins with such incredible speed that it seemed as if he vanished before his eyes. After dealing with the goblins, Ronan instructed Assel to get up as they needed to return home. As they journeyed back, Ronan felt a twinge of pain in his shoulders. He couldn't believe his muscles would ache after dispatching a few goblins, realizing it was likely due to his body still growing. Determined, he resolved to engage in rigorous physical training upon returning home. Assel inquired of Ronan who he believed caused the loud noise that awakened the goblins. Ronan admitted he didn't know, but vowed to confront and retaliate against the person if ever they crossed paths. As Ronan and Assel continued walking, an arrow was aimed at Assel. Fortunately, Ronan managed to intercept and catch the arrow. Assel was taken aback by this unexpected turn of events. As Assel pondered the origin of the arrow, he and Ronan engaged in discussion. Suddenly, the 2 men who had previously attempted to shoot Assel arrived to meet them. They offered apologies for their earlier actions and inquired about what children like them were doing there at night. Ronan bristled with anger at being referred to as a child. Upon noticing the treasures in Ronan's bag, the men expressed delight. They apologized once more to Ronan and Assel. Ronan, distrustful of their insincere apologies, demanded to know their identities. One of the men drew a knife and launched an attack on Ronan, revealing their group's name as Caribolo. Reacting swiftly, Ronan disarmed the man and retaliated by using the knife to stab him. Upon witnessing his friend's attack, the other man charged at Ronan, only to be thwarted by Assel, who employed a skill known as Invisible Hand to restrain him. Ronan expressed gratitude to Assel for intervening and proceeded to take the man's knife, using it to inflict fatal wounds. Assel, shocked by the brutality of Ronan's actions, inquired if he had killed the man. Ronan asserted his resolve to eliminate anyone who posed a threat to him, justifying his actions by explaining that the men belonged to a group responsible for numerous atrocities. They were notorious for crimes such as poaching, kidnapping, and human trafficking, earning them the title of the Empire's most notorious poaching group. Ronan informed Assel that these men intended to steal their treasures and harvest their organs. While disposing of the bodies, Ronan and Assel noticed movement in the men's bag. Upon opening it, they were surprised to find a bird nestled inside. Ronan was taken aback by the sight of the bird, especially noting its blue feathers. Upon closer inspection of the bird's legs, he discovered a chain attached to it. This chain was an unusual piece of equipment typically used by Karibolo to disrupt a prisoner's mana and constrain their movements. Ronan was astonished by this revelation, as such equipment was typically reserved for capturing mystical beasts, not ordinary prisoners. This indicated that the individual attempting to communicate had been striving to establish a connection with the bird, but the bag had been impeding the connection. The person, named Baron, identified himself as a professor researching rare mystical beasts. Baron explained that he was the guardian of the bird, named Marpe, and mentioned he had been unable to connect with Marpe for some time. He was on the verge of reporting the situation to the authorities when the connection was finally established. Baron inquired about Ronan and Assel's identities. Ronan replied that they were righteous passers-by who had rescued Marpe from poachers. Baron expressed disbelief at Marpe's kidnapping and expressed gratitude to Ronan for rescuing Marpe. He then asked how he could repay them for their help. Assel assured Baron that repayment was unnecessary and instead inquired about Marpe's well-being. Assel expressed concern that Marpe appeared exhausted from being chained up. Ronan queried Baron about Marpe's ability to fly once the chain was removed. Baron assured them that he would do so. Following his statement, Ronan shattered Marpe's chains with a single strike and instructed Marpe to return home. Upon hearing this, Marpe viewed Ronan as a radiant hero and expressed his gratitude by presenting his backside to Ronan. Baron informed Ronan that Marpe wished to see him again and, as a token of appreciation, requested Ronan to pluck one of Marpe's feathers. Baron informed Ronan that a mystical bird like Marpe could use its feather as a compass to find its way back home. He promised to repay Ronan when he visited his institution. With that, Marpe took flight and departed. Shortly after the bird's departure, Ronan noticed something on his hand. A few days later, Ronan brought the treasures he had acquired to a merchant named Duon Caravel. Duon, the leader of the Caravel Trading Company, greeted Ronan warmly upon their meeting. He expressed delight at having a customer like Ronan, who brought a wealth of valuable items. Similarly, Ronan was pleased to encounter a merchant of Duon's integrity, appreciating his honesty and fair dealings. Unlike other merchants who attempted to deceive Ronan, Duon remained forthright in his transactions. Ronan approached Duon, seeking his expertise in appraising an unusual item. Handing over the peculiar-looking egg, Ronan initially mistook it for feces and was incensed at the thought that Marpe might have played such a prank on him. Fueled by frustration, he hurled the egg against a nearby boulder, only to witness the egg completely crush the rock upon impact. Intrigued and perplexed by this unexpected display of strength, Ronan sought Duon's assistance in identifying the type of egg it was. Upon examining the egg closely, Duon initially speculated that it resembled horse droppings. Ronan, taken aback by this assessment, accepted the egg from Duon and opted to retain it for further inspection later. Ronan then inquired if Duon sold books pertaining to Philion Academy, explaining their intention to apply to the institution and the need for preparatory reading material. Duon expressed his joy upon hearing this news, revealing that his own daughter, Maria, was also applying to the academy. Introducing them to Maria, Duon emphasized Ronan and Assel's importance as individuals with whom he had just concluded a business deal. Maria was taken aback by the revelation, finding it hard to believe that individuals as young as Ronan and Assel had just struck a deal with her father. Sensing the discomfort, Duon apologized to Ronan and Assel for his daughter's choice of words. Undeterred, Ronan approached Maria and inquired if her middle name was Sen. Confirming this, Maria's response left Ronan astonished, as he couldn't fathom how much she resembled someone from his past life. Ronan felt perplexed, as the Maria he remembered from his past life was male. Approaching Maria discreetly, he leaned in and quietly asked if she had a dick down there.